He's disturbing the other tenants. Those 5 words hang in the air of Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom like an accusation without mercy. Landlord Richard Dawson stands before the bench, his suit crisp, his voice confident, his case seemingly simple. He wants 72-year-old James Sullivan evicted from apartment 3B for creating disturbances, violating lease terms, and making other residents uncomfortable. James, sitting quietly with the defeated posture of a man who's already lost everything that mattered, doesn't even try to defend himself. What's the point? His wife is gone. His purpose disappeared. And now his home, the last place on earth that still smells like Margaret's lavender soap and holds the echoes of her laughter, will be taken too. But Judge Caprio, who spent 30 years reading between the lines of legal documents and seeing the truth hidden in people's eyes, senses something wrong with this case. Something about James's silence speaks louder than Dawson's accusations. And when the judge asks one simple question, "Mr. Sullivan, what exactly have you been doing in your apartment?" the answer will shatter every assumption, break every heart, and prove that some disturbances are actually miracles in disguise. Before we reveal what James has been hiding, what this 72-year-old widower has been doing that will make you cry, I need you to hit that subscribe button right now. This story represents everything beautiful about Judge Frank Caprio's legacy of compassion. And if you believe our elders deserve dignity, respect, and the chance to tell their full story before being judged, then this channel is for you. It's a cold Wednesday morning in Providence Municipal Court, the kind of November day where gray skies press down on the city like a weight. Judge Frank Caprio sits behind his bench, reviewing the morning's cases. At 76 years old, he's seen thousands of landlord-tenant disputes. Most of them follow predictable patterns. Unpaid rent, property damage, lease violations, simple cases with clear resolutions. But something about today's first case catches his attention. The file is thin, too thin for a case that's requesting immediate eviction. The complaint reads simply, tenant creating disturbances, multiple neighbor complaints, lease violation, requesting immediate removal. What disturbances? Judge Caprio wonders. The file doesn't specify. No police reports, no damage assessments, just vague accusations and a landlord who seems very eager to remove a tenant who's lived in his building for 18 years. At exactly 9:30 a.m., the bailiff calls the case. Dawson versus Sullivan, eviction proceeding. Richard Dawson enters first. He's in his mid-50s, wearing a suit that probably costs more than most people's monthly rent. Everything about him screams success. The Rolex watch, the Italian leather shoes, the confidence of a man who's used to getting exactly what he wants. Behind him walks his attorney, a sharp-looking woman in her 40s carrying a briefcase that looks brand new. And then James Sullivan enters. The contrast is immediate and heartbreaking. James moves slowly, using a wooden cane for support. He's wearing clothes that are clean but clearly old, a cardigan that's been carefully mended at the elbows, slacks that have been pressed so many times the creases are permanent. His shoes are polished but worn through at the heels. But it's his face that Judge Caprio notices most. James Sullivan has the expression of a man who's been hollowed out by grief. His eyes, though clear and intelligent, carry a sadness so profound it's almost visible. James walks to the defendant's table alone. No attorney, no family, no support. Judge Caprio's instincts, honed by 3 decades of seeing human suffering disguised as legal disputes, immediately tell him something is very wrong with this case. "Mr. Dawson," Judge Caprio begins, his voice warm but carrying authority. "You're seeking to evict Mr. Sullivan from apartment 3B, a residence he's occupied for 18 years. Can you explain the grounds for this eviction?" Richard Dawson stands with the practiced ease of someone who's comfortable in courtrooms. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward case. Mr. Sullivan has been creating significant disturbances in my building. Multiple tenants have complained. The lease clearly states that tenants must not disturb the quiet enjoyment of other residents." Judge Caprio looks down at the file. "Mr. Dawson, I see the complaint mentions disturbances, but there are no specific details, no police reports, no formal complaints from other tenants. Can you be more specific about these alleged disturbances?" Dawson's attorney stands. "Your Honor, if I may, we have witness statements from concerned neighbors." She hands several documents to the bailiff, who brings them to Judge Caprio. The judge reads through them carefully, his expression growing more concerned with each page. Loud noises in the evening hours. Strange sounds coming from the apartment. Children's voices heard inside. Possible illegal activity. Judge Caprio looks up. Mr. Dawson, these statements are vague. Loud noises could mean anything. Music, television, normal living sounds. And I notice all these statements are anonymous. Your tenants wouldn't put their names on these complaints. Dawson shifts slightly. Your Honor, they were concerned about retaliation. Mr. Sullivan has become unstable since his wife passed away. They're honestly frightened of him. The word unstable hangs in the air like poison. Judge Caprio's eyes move to James Sullivan, who sits with his hands folded on the table, staring at nothing. He hasn't reacted to any of the accusations, hasn't defended himself, hasn't even looked up. Mr. Sullivan, Judge Caprio says gently, do you have anything to say about these accusations? James lifts his head slowly. When he speaks, his voice is quiet but clear. Your Honor, I don't deny that there have been noises from my apartment, but I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm not doing anything wrong. Can you tell me what's causing these noises? Judge Caprio asks. James hesitates. His hands grip each other tightly. I'd rather not say, Your Honor. It's personal. Richard Dawson seizes on this. You see, Your Honor? He won't even explain himself. He's clearly hiding something inappropriate. My other tenants have a right to live in peace without wondering what's happening in apartment 3B. Judge Caprio holds up his hand. Mr. Dawson, I'll decide what people have a right to. Right now, I'm trying to understand this situation. He turns back to James. Mr. Sullivan, I understand you want privacy. We all do. But you're facing eviction from your home of 18 years. I need to understand what's happening in your apartment so I can make a fair decision. Will you tell me? James's eyes fill with tears. Your Honor, if I tell you, everyone will think I'm foolish. They'll think grief has made me lose my mind. They'll think I'm just a lonely old man who doesn't know what he's doing anymore. The courtroom falls completely silent. Even Richard Dawson seems taken aback by the raw emotion in James's voice. Judge Caprio stands up from his bench and walks around to the front. This is his signature move, the one he makes when he knows a case requires more than judicial distance. It requires human connection. Mr. Sullivan, Judge Caprio says, his voice filled with compassion. I've been on this bench for 30 years. I've heard every story you can imagine. I promise you, I will not think you're foolish. I will not judge you for grieving. I will listen with an open heart and an open mind. Please tell me what's happening in apartment 3B. James takes a shaking breath. His voice, when it comes, is barely above a whisper. Your Honor, my wife Margaret died 14 months ago, ovarian cancer. We were married for 47 years. She was everything to me. Judge Caprio nods with understanding. I'm very sorry for your loss, Mr. Sullivan. 47 years is a beautiful testament to love. After she died, James continues, his voice growing stronger, I didn't know how to keep living. Every morning I woke up and forgot for just a moment that she was gone. And then I'd remember, and it felt like losing her all over again. The apartment felt so empty, so quiet. I thought about ending things. The courtroom is so silent, you could hear a pin drop. Several people in the gallery have tears in their eyes. But then something happened, James says, something that saved my life. Before James can continue, Richard Dawson interrupts with barely concealed impatience. Your Honor, with all due respect, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Mr. Sullivan is clearly emotionally unstable. This is a simple eviction case, not a therapy session. I have a business to run. I have responsible tenants who deserve to live without disturbances from someone who admits he's suicidal. The cruelty of those words shocks everyone. Several people in the gallery gasp audibly. But Dawson isn't finished. He turns slightly, looking at James with open disdain. Mr. Sullivan, I'm sorry about your wife. I truly am. But your grief doesn't give you the right to disturb an entire building. You're 72 years old. Maybe it's time to face reality. Maybe you should be in a facility where you can get proper care instead of bothering people who are trying to live normal lives. Then Dawson makes his fatal mistake. He turns back to Judge Caprio, and what he says next will change everything. Your Honor, let's be honest here. He's just a lonely old man who bothers everyone. Nobody wants him there. He should be in a home. These elderly people, they don't understand that the world has moved on without them. They cling to apartments they can't properly maintain. They create problems for everyone around them, and they expect sympathy just because they're old. The courtroom erupts, not with noise, but with the kind of shocked silence that follows a physical blow. Judge Caprio's expression transforms completely. The warmth vanishes from his eyes. His jaw sets. His hands grip the bench with barely controlled fury. When he speaks, his voice is quiet, but it fills every corner of the courtroom with the weight of absolute authority. Mr. Dawson, each word is measured, controlled, devastating. Did you just refer to Mr. Sullivan as just a lonely old man? Did you just suggest that elderly people are problems to be moved into facilities and forgotten? Did you just tell this court that Mr. Sullivan doesn't deserve to live in his own home because other people find his grief inconvenient? Dawson realizes, too late, that he's crossed a line. Your Honor, I didn't mean— Oh, I think you meant exactly what you said, Mr. Dawson, Judge Caprio interrupts. And I think you're about to learn a very important lesson about respect, compassion, and what it means to be a human being. The judge turns to James, and his voice softens immediately. Mr. Sullivan, please continue. You said something saved your life. Tell us what happened. James wipes his eyes with a handkerchief that looks like it belonged to his wife. 6 months ago, my downstairs neighbor, Mrs. Chen, died. She'd been fighting breast cancer for 2 years. I used to visit her, bring her soup, sit with her when she didn't want to be alone. Margaret and I had done that for years. He pauses, gathering strength. Mrs. Chen had a granddaughter, Emma. She's 8 years old now. When Mrs. Chen got really sick, Emma's mother, Mrs. Chen's daughter, would drop Emma off after school while she worked her second job as a night nurse. Mrs. Chen would watch Emma, help her with homework, give her dinner. Judge Caprio listens intently, beginning to understand. And after Mrs. Chen passed away? Emma's mother was desperate, James continues. She's a single parent, works 2 jobs just to keep their apartment, can't afford after-school care, can't leave an 8-year-old alone for 6 hours every evening. She was about to lose one of her jobs because she had no childcare. James's voice cracks. Your Honor, I saw this little girl crying at her grandmother's funeral. She looked so lost, so frightened, and I remembered what it felt like to lose the person you love most in the world. So I did something I probably shouldn't have done. What did you do, Mr. Sullivan? Judge Caprio asks gently. I offered to watch Emma after school, Monday through Friday, 3:30 to 9 p.m., when her mother gets home from her second job. I help Emma with her homework. I make her dinner. We read books together. We do art projects. We talk about her grandmother and keep her memory alive. The courtroom is completely silent. This is what the disturbances were. This is what the loud noises meant. An 8-year-old child playing, laughing, living in the apartment of a widower who needed purpose as much as she needed care. Your Honor, James continues, tears streaming down his face now. Emma saved my life. After Margaret died, I had no reason to wake up in the morning. But now, every day at 3:30, I hear a knock on my door. And when I open it, there's Emma with her backpack and her smile, and suddenly I have a reason to keep living. I have a reason to make dinner. I have a reason to care if the apartment is clean. I have a reason to exist. He looks at Richard Dawson for the first time. Those disturbances you're complaining about? That's an 8-year-old girl doing her homework, playing with her toys, laughing at my terrible jokes. That's the sound of a child being cared for by someone who would otherwise be waiting to die. Judge Caprio has to pause before speaking. His own eyes are glistening. Mr. Sullivan, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard in this courtroom. You took your grief and transformed it into service. You took your loss and turned it into love for a child who needed you. He turns to Richard Dawson, and the warmth is completely gone from his voice. Mr. Dawson, do you understand what you were trying to destroy? Do you understand what you called a disturbance? But the story isn't over. Judge Caprio notices something in the file he missed before. Mr. Sullivan, I see here that you've been paying your rent on time every single month. Never late, never missed. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, James confirms. I've never missed a payment in 18 years. Judge Caprio's eyes narrow. Mr. Dawson, why are you really trying to evict Mr. Sullivan? Because from where I'm sitting, you have a model tenant who's providing free childcare for a working single mother, who's never missed rent, who's lived peacefully in your building for nearly 2 decades. So why do you really want him gone? Dawson's attorney stands quickly. Your Honor, my client has the right to decide who lives in his properties. That's not what I asked, Counselor, Judge Caprio says sharply. I asked why, and I want Mr. Dawson to answer, not you. Richard Dawson's face flushes. He shifts his weight, looking increasingly uncomfortable. Your Honor, the building I have plans for renovations. Renovations, Judge Caprio repeats. What kind of renovations? There's a long pause. Finally, Dawson admits the truth. I'm converting the building to luxury condos. The units will sell for $400,000 to $600,000 each, but I can't do that with existing tenants under rent-controlled leases. I need the building empty. The truth lands like a bomb. Judge Caprio's voice turns ice cold. So let me understand this correctly, Mr. Dawson. You fabricated complaints about disturbances. You convinced your other tenants to make anonymous statements. You portrayed Mr. Sullivan as unstable and dangerous, all so you could evict him and convert his home into luxury condos for wealthy buyers. Your Honor, this is a business decision. Dawson tries. This is greed, Judge Caprio interrupts. This is cruelty disguised as business. This is a man trying to destroy an elderly widower's life so he can make more money. The judge stands up, and everyone in the courtroom knows something significant is about to happen. Mr. Dawson, I'm going to explain something to you very clearly. In my courtroom, human beings matter more than profit margins. Compassion matters more than luxury condos, and elderly people who have spent decades building a life in this city matter infinitely more than your bank account. He pauses, letting the words sink in. This eviction is denied, completely and absolutely denied. Mr. Sullivan will remain in apartment 3B for as long as he wishes to stay there. His rent will remain at the current rate, protected by his existing lease terms, and you will not harass him, threaten him, or make any further attempts to remove him. Is that clear? But Judge Caprio isn't finished. Furthermore, Mr. Dawson, I'm ordering an investigation into your business practices. If you've used similar tactics to evict other long-term tenants, you will face consequences. The city attorney's office will review your recent eviction cases for patterns of elder abuse and fraud. Dawson's face goes pale. Your Honor, you can't. I absolutely can, Judge Caprio says firmly, and I am. He turns to James Sullivan, and his voice softens completely. Mr. Sullivan, what you've been doing for Emma is remarkable, but I'm concerned about something. Are you getting any compensation for the child care you're providing? James shakes his head. No, Your Honor, I don't want payment. This isn't a job. She's family now. I understand that, Judge Caprio says gently, but I want to make sure you're protected. I'm going to have social services connect you with resources. There are programs that can provide some financial support for kinship care arrangements like yours. You're providing an essential service to a working family, and you deserve recognition for that. He continues, I'm also going to personally ensure that your building is inspected thoroughly. If Mr. Dawson has been neglecting maintenance in hopes of forcing tenants out, that ends today. The judge looks around the packed courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen, what you've witnessed here today is why our legal system exists. Not to serve the wealthy and powerful, not to help landlords maximize profits, but to protect vulnerable people from those who would exploit them. Before Judge Caprio can adjourn, a voice comes from the back of the courtroom. Your Honor, may I speak? Everyone turns. A woman in her 30s wearing hospital scrubs stands up. She's been crying throughout the testimony. Please, Judge Caprio says, state your name. I'm Lisa Chen, Your Honor, Emma's mother, Mrs. Chen's daughter. Lisa walks forward with trembling hands. Your Honor, I didn't know about this eviction case. Mr. Sullivan never told me. He didn't want me to worry. She turns to James with tears streaming down her face. Mr. Sullivan, you saved our lives. After my mother died, I was drowning. I couldn't work, couldn't pay rent, couldn't take care of Emma properly. I was about to lose everything. And you just opened your door and your heart and asked for nothing in return. Lisa faces Richard Dawson, and her voice strengthens. You tried to evict the man who kept my family together. You tried to throw out the person who loves my daughter like she's his own granddaughter. You called him a disturbance when he's actually a miracle." She turns back to Judge Caprio. "Your Honor, Emma talks about Mr. Sullivan constantly. She calls him Grandpa James. He's taught her to bake cookies using his wife's recipes. He helps her with her reading every night. He takes her to the park on weekends. He's family." Judge Caprio smiles warmly. "Miss Chen, thank you for sharing that. Your testimony confirms what I already knew. Mr. Sullivan isn't causing problems. He's solving them." Judge Caprio returns to his bench and picks up his gavel. But before he strikes it, he has more to say. "I want to address something that Mr. Dawson said earlier. He suggested that elderly people should be moved into facilities, that they're problems, that the world has moved on without them." The judge's voice fills with passion. "Mr. Dawson, people like James Sullivan are the reason our communities have soul. They carry our history, they provide wisdom, they offer the kind of patient, loving care that our frantic, profit-driven society desperately needs." He continues, "When Margaret Sullivan died, James could have given up. He could have surrendered to grief and isolation. Instead, he chose to keep living. He chose to serve others. He chose to turn his pain into purpose by caring for a child who needed him as much as he needed her." Judge Caprio looks directly at James. "Mr. Sullivan, you represent everything good about the human spirit. You took tragedy and created beauty. You took loss and created love. You took loneliness and created family." He turns to the courtroom. "I've been a judge for 30 years. I've seen thousands of cases, and this is one of the most beautiful examples of human kindness I've ever encountered. Not because it's dramatic or extraordinary, but because it's simple. An elderly man helping a young family, a widower finding purpose, a grieving child finding a grandfather. This is what community is supposed to look like." The gavel finally falls. "This eviction case is dismissed with prejudice. Mr. Dawson, you are ordered to leave Mr. Sullivan alone. Furthermore, you will issue a formal apology to him in writing within 7 days. If you fail to do so, or if you engage in any retaliatory action, I will hold you in contempt." Judge Caprio isn't quite finished. "And Mr. Dawson, I want you to think very carefully about what kind of person you want to be. You have wealth, you have property, you have success by society's standards, but today, in this courtroom, you were defeated by a 72-year-old widower whose only weapons were kindness and love. What does that tell you about your priorities?" The courtroom erupts in applause. People are standing, crying, clapping. James Sullivan sits with his face in his hands, shoulders shaking with relief and emotion. Lisa Chen rushes over and hugs him tightly. "Thank you," she whispers. "Thank you for everything." Richard Dawson leaves the courtroom quickly, his face red, his confidence shattered. His attorney follows, already on her phone, likely trying to manage the public relations disaster this case will create. 3 months after that courtroom hearing, Providence Municipal Court received a letter. Judge Caprio read it aloud during a morning session, wanting to share an update on a case that had touched so many hearts. The letter was from Lisa Chen. "Dear Judge Caprio, I'm writing to tell you what's happened since that day in your courtroom when you saved Mr. Sullivan from eviction. Emma is thriving. Her grades have improved dramatically because Mr. Sullivan helps her with homework every single night. She's reading 2 grades above her level now. She won the school art contest with a painting of flowers that Mr. Sullivan taught her to draw. But more than academics, Emma is healing. She's stopped having nightmares about losing her grandmother. She smiles again. She laughs. And it's all because of the love and stability that Mr. Sullivan provides every single day. I was able to quit my second job because I'm no longer paying for after-school care. This means I see Emma in the mornings now before school. We have breakfast together. We're a family again. Mr. Sullivan has become Emma's grandfather in every way that matters. On her birthday last month, he baked her a 3-layer cake using his late wife's recipe. Emma said it was the best cake she'd ever tasted. Then Mr. Sullivan gave her a photo album he'd created, filled with pictures of Emma and her grandmother, so she'd never forget the woman who loved her first. Your Honor, you didn't just save an eviction case that day. You saved 3 lives. Mr. Sullivan's, Emma's, and mine. With eternal gratitude, Lisa Chen and Emma. When Judge Caprio finished reading, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom, but the story continued to ripple outward in ways nobody expected. The local news picked up the case. The story of the widower, the little girl, and the landlord's cruelty went viral. Within days, it had been viewed millions of times. People across the country were moved by James Sullivan's quiet heroism. Donations poured in, more than $200,000 from strangers who wanted to support his care for Emma. James used the money to establish the Margaret Sullivan Memorial Scholarship Fund, providing college savings accounts for children being raised by elderly caregivers in Providence. Emma was the first recipient. The investigation into Richard Dawson's business practices uncovered that he had systematically targeted elderly tenants in multiple buildings, using fabricated complaints to evict them before converting properties to luxury condos. He faced hefty fines and was forced to offer compensation to the families he'd displaced. More importantly, the case led to new tenant protections in Providence and eventually influenced state legislation protecting elderly residents from predatory eviction practices. But perhaps the most beautiful outcome was this. James Sullivan's story inspired hundreds of other seniors to volunteer as after-school mentors and caregivers. A program called Grandparents by Choice launched in Providence, matching isolated seniors with families who needed childcare support. Within a year, over 300 seniors had joined, transforming loneliness into purpose for elderly people throughout the city. James Sullivan gave an interview 6 months after the court case. The reporter asked him what he wanted people to remember about his story. His answer was simple: grief can destroy you, or it can transform you. I chose transformation. And I found that when you give love, even when you think you have nothing left to give, love comes back to you multiplied. Emma needed me, but I needed her just as much. We saved each other. When asked about Judge Caprio, James's eyes filled with tears. Judge Caprio saw me when other people just saw a problem. He listened when other people just wanted to get rid of me. He understood that sometimes the messy, complicated, inconvenient parts of life are actually the most beautiful. He's not just a judge, he's a guardian of human dignity. Today, James Sullivan still lives in apartment 3B. Every weekday at 3:30 p.m., Emma knocks on his door, and they spend the evening together doing homework, baking cookies, and keeping Margaret's memory alive. The apartment that was once filled with grief is now filled with laughter, learning, and love. And a 72-year-old widower who once contemplated ending his life now wakes up every morning with purpose, joy, and a granddaughter who calls him family. This is the legacy of Judge Frank Caprio. Not just enforcing laws, but protecting the vulnerable. Not just hearing cases, but listening to hearts. Not just delivering verdicts, but defending human dignity. If this story moved you, if you believe our elders deserve respect and protection, if you think compassion should guide our justice system, then share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that prove Judge Caprio's legacy, that kindness, empathy, and human decency can triumph over greed and cruelty. Hit that like button if you believe that lonely widowers helping struggling families is what community looks like. If you believe that elderly people aren't problems to be warehoused in facilities, but treasures to be honored and included. And remember Judge Caprio's words, "In my courtroom, human beings matter more than profit margins. Compassion matters more than luxury condos. And elderly people who have spent decades building lives in this city matter infinitely more than anyone's bank account." That's justice. That's compassion. That's the world Judge Frank Caprio spent 30 years building, one case at a time. Drop a comment below telling us, where are you watching from? And have you ever witnessed or experienced this kind of intergenerational kindness? Share your stories because they matter. Justice served, hearts healed, community restored.